What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Super Beast GN, and today we're going to be going over one of my paper magic decks. That is Ulamog the Defiler. And Ulamog the Defiler says, when you cast this spell, target opponent exiles half of their library, round it up. I would assume that's the top half. That's kind of funny, it doesn't specify the top half. Half the top. It's weird. Ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. Ulamog the Defiler enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it, equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. That's any exile. Ulamog has Annihilator X, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. So naturally, we're trying to ramp as much as we can and try to get this out as fast as possible in a 4-player game of Commander. We can, however, exile the top half of one person's deck and then attack somebody else. Kind of like spread the wealth a little bit, if you will. But we'll go over that a little more in a second after we get some of the cards out of the way. And let's get into the creatures that are in this deck. Our first creature is Palladium Mirror. And Palladium Mirror is a 3-mana 2/2 that adds 2 mana, taps for 2 mana. So just a little bit of ramp is what we need in this deck. There's going to be a lot of ramp, a lot of mana rocks, a lot of ramp. The next creature is Metalwork Colossus. Now, I didn't see too many lists have the Metalwork Colossus in it, and I get it. It's not really like the greatest creature in the world, but since we are playing so many non-creature mana rocks in this deck, I just felt like I really love the Metalwork Colossus. Something I wanted to add myself, and just a really cool card. Metalwork Colossus costs X less to cast, where X is the total of converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts you control. So it is very easy in this deck to get this down to 0 and just cast it for free. We can also sacrifice 2 artifacts to return this card from our graveyard to our hand. Don't know how much we're going to be doing that, but it is an option. So we can do that if we need to. We also have the Glaring Fleshraker. The Freshmaker. Glaring Fleshraker. 2 and a colorless. Everything is colorless in the deck. All the lands, everything is a 2/2. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature and add colorless. Whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, Glaring Fleshraker deals 1 damage to each opponent. So it just makes more mana dorks and burns our opponent out a little bit. We don't have too many creatures in the deck, but we can utilize this to an extent. It is each opponent, so it is nice in a game of normal Commander. Ornithopter of Paradise, just another mana dork. This taps for 1 mana of any color, which won't help us with the colorless mana costs, but our Commander doesn't have a colorless mana cost, so that's what we're really trying to get into. And, you know, by this time, if we have at least 1 or 2 lands on the field, which we will have because we will have to cast this, we will have colorless mana, so we'll be fine. Kozilek, the Broken Reality. Legendary Eldrazi, 9 mana. When you cast this spell, up to 2 target players each manifest 2 cards from their hands. For each card manifested this way, you draw a card. Other colorless creatures you control get +3/+2. At first, I was thinking small ball. I was like, oh, I can make my opponents just manifest their cards. They have no choice but to put them on the battlefield if they're not creatures, and they kind of lose them. But then I realized that we draw a card for each card manifested this way. If we have a couple opponents with no cards in their hands, we can also just do this ourselves. And then technically the manifested cards are colorless, so they will get +3/+2. So we'll have these big ol' 5/4 or whatever 5/4 creatures on the field, and our opponent will just have like these little 2/2s. But also we get to draw cards that way too, so we get to put some maybe stuff we don't need from our hands onto the battlefield, make creatures, and then we also get to draw cards with it too. So it is a very nice kind of versatile card. It is 9 mana, but like I said, we are ramping in this deck a lot. We do have a lot of mana rocks, so, and we will get to them. Kozilek the Broken Reality, probably, I would say one of the weaker cards, because like, once we get our big creatures out, the +3/+2 is kind of negligible. Like, having our Commander out there as a 14/14 most of the time, because I think a lot of like the big creatures and the big spells in Commander today, a lot of times if it's going to cap out at a big number, it's going to cap out usually at 7. I mean, obviously there's 8, there's 9, there's 10, but I think the average like big mana spells in every single deck, I think everybody has at least 1 7 mana thing in their deck somehow, some way. So I always go like, oh, seven counters on it. So it's a 7/7 with, you know, 14/14. But it feels like +3/+2 kind of small ball when it comes to, like, you know, the commander. But if you can't get your commander, or if somehow your commander gets killed, this is just a nice way to get in at your opponents. So, Kozilek, the Broken Reality. We have Ultima, Origin of Oblivion. This is a Final Fantasy card. This is a god. 5 mana, flying. Whenever Ultima attacks, put a blight counter on target land. For as long as that land has a blight counter on it, it loses all land types and abilities, and has tap to add colorless. Whenever you tap a land for colorless, add an additional colorless, which is nice to ramp. This is here for ramp. It's colorless. It's a good thing. We can also stop our opponents from doing, you know, if our opponent has like some dual lands on the field, we can also stop that from happening too. We can be degenerates about it. You know, that's fine. If this was like a colored Eldrazi deck, like Ulamog or something, I would say we could actually do this on our own lands, you know, to make the colors. But all our lands in the deck make colors anyway, so. Basically, when it attacks, we're just going to try to stifle our opponent's, stifle? Nah. I mean, well, you know, stop our opponent's lands from doing the thing. So, pretty nice stuff. We have Foundry Inspector. A lot of artifacts in the deck, just nice to have the artifact reduction. And it's a colorless creature. It is a 3/2. It gets a pump from Kozilek, so just a nice cheap creature to have in the deck. Emrakul, the World Anew, is a 12 mana. When you cast this spell, gain control of all creatures target player controls, flying, protection from spells, and from permanents that were cast this turn. So no banishing light and all that stuff. When Emrakul, the World Anew, leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control, and it's got madness. You can pay 6 colorless to just cast it if you discard it. And we do have maybe a way or two to discard it in the deck, but like I said, we are ramping, so a lot of mana rocks, so we should be able to just pay 12 for this at some point. Walking Ballista, XX. Walking Ballista enters with X/1/1 counters on it. 4, put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista. You can remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. This can go infinite with a couple of cards in the deck, which we will go over absolutely later. But just a good colorless card to have. The Pathrazer of Ulamog. Just another big Eldrazi. Has Annihilator 3. So, you know, when it attacks, our defending player is going to have to sacrifice 3 permanents. That's a lot. And then it has, like, Super Menace. It can't be blocked by, except for by 3 or more creatures. So that's like, it's like Menace +1. It is an 11 mana creature, but it is 9/9, so it's a very powerful thing. Very powerful. Like my Eldrazi. We're getting degenerate here. Oblivion Sower. And let me ask you guys if you have any ripple foils. Do you have the problem where like the ripple foils just curve a little bit? Like I don't like that. Like, and they've done it so well sometimes where like some of the foils have not curved, but the curling on the ripple foils is just so bad. This is a 6 mana Oblivion Sower, 6 mana Eldrazi. When you cast this spell, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of their library. Then you may put any number of land cards that player owns from exile onto the battlefield under your control, which actually gets better after Ulamog comes in, because then you get to exile half their library, and then you get to put all of their lands on the battlefield, because it's not just among the cards they mill here, it is all cards in exile. So I thought that was a pretty decent, because you could just like ramp later, like, if your Ulamog gets destroyed, or even if you get even if there's someone exiling their own thing somehow, some way, you just get to ramp a lot, and that's really good for this deck. You want to have as many lands as possible on the field. We have Artisan of Kozilek. It's a 9 mana 10/9. When you cast Artisan of Kozilek, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a cast trigger, so not an enter the battlefield trigger. But if you have this on the turn, like if let's say your opponent does get rid of like Ulamog, you can just cast this next turn and get it back from the graveyard. Ulamog, it should be noted that Ulamog, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, it does get the counters again, because it is upon entering. That is not a cast trigger, so it enters with that many counters. So if the things that you exiled before are still exiled, it will still come in with those counters on it, and sometimes maybe even bigger, who knows. But Artisan of Kozilek also has Annihilator 2, which is another thing we can do to stop our opponents from doing their crazy stuff. We need some Discord mods, so we got Twins of Discord here. 7 mana, 8/6. Whenever you attack, choose odd or even. Creatures with mana value of that quality can't block this turn, so make your things almost unblockable. Each other colorless creature you control has Bloodthirst 2. So if you basically, what that means is if a creature deals damage to your opponent, I think it's just creature. It's hard without the reminder text on this. But it is if you attacked and dealt damage or something like that, your colorless creatures come in with an extra plus 2 +1/+1 counters. So just another way to get more counters on your Ulamog later, since you can, you can and probably will get this out before your commander. But just a nice little, also making your giant Eldrazi unblockable is just insane. So pretty cool. Technically unblockable. I mean, unless your opponent has more than odd or even. We have a poo UFO, and this is from the Final Fantasy set. 2 mana flying. You can tap it to put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. Just much needed ramp if you have a bunch of lands in your hand. We can't run green in this deck, so this is pretty much one of the few ways we can ramp. 3 until end of turn. This creature's base power becomes equal to the number of towns you control. We have 0. I don't think. Do we have towns? Can't remember if Adventurer's Inn is a town. I don't think it is. I don't think we have any towns in the deck or any real reason to utilize that. I don't think we will ever utilize that. There's no reason to, unless our opponents are playing a bunch of towns and we get them with the Oblivion Sower. That's pretty good. But other than that, it's just here to be a colorless creature, flying blocker. It's a 0/4, so it's a decent early game blocker, and just to get lands into play, so we can play our stuff. We have the Geode Golem, which is a nice card for this deck, especially when you're playing those giant-sized commanders. 5 mana, trample whenever it deals damage to a player. You may cast your commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost, so you can cast your Ulamog for 0. You do have to still pay the commander tax, though, so if it has gone back, you've cast it once or twice, you still have to pay that extra command tax. But still, you're still paying less than what you would be paying for Ulamog. And what is interesting about this, what's great about this, is that you may cast your commander, so you still get those cast triggers from your commander. Skittering Surveyor, just another creature, enters the battlefield, gets you a basic land from your deck to your hand. Just more ways to get more lands, just to keep... We got to hit our land drops every turn in this deck. It's very important in this deck to just hit your land drops and just not die to aggro-y decks like red decks early on. Hedron Crawler, just another mana dork, taps for colorless, 0/1, we do not care. It can get buffs from other things in the deck, but it's just here to ramp us. Little Eldrazi Ravager, Annihilator 1, 5 and a colorless, 6/6. Sacrifice 2 Eldrazi, return Eldrazi Ravager from your graveyard to your hand. It has cycling, another way to draw cards. I was debating whether or not to put this in the deck, and I was like, there's so much better things, but like, at the same time, we don't have a lot of ways to draw cards in the deck, like, at instant speed. So I was like, okay, this is fine. We can always get it back with something, with the Kozilek, the Artisan of Kozilek, but, just nice to be able to like cycle at instant speed. Kozilek's Channeler, add 2 mana to your mana pool, just another mana dork. It's 5 mana, but our commander is like, it's just very expensive. It's a 10 mana thing, so I had to look at it because I forgot which one it was. Which Ulamog? I guess they're all 10. No, there is an 11 mana Ulamog, isn't there? I can't remember. But this one, yeah, it's just more mana. Just more mana to put on the field. Plus, we have colorless reductions in the deck somewhere, so it is possible to get that down even earlier. Or faster, or like in multiples of like a bunch of things at a time, We have ourselves the Burnished Hart, which is just a mana ramp creature, 3 mana. Pay 3 to sacrifice it. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. It that heralds the end, 1 and a colorless, 2/2 colorless spells you cast with mana value 7 or greater, cost 1 less to cast. Other colorless creatures you control get +1/+1. So another buff, another cost reduction. Pretty cool. Warden of Geometries, this one is just another mana dork with vigilance now. You can attack with this one and then still tap for mana. Solemn Simulacrum, just more mana ramp. We get to draw cards with it. Like I said, we don't have a whole lot of ways to draw cards, so any good... And I know like a lot of people aren't putting this in their commander decks anymore, but like this is a colorless commander deck. We have no way to ramp. We can't play Land of War Elves. We can't play Clifftop Lookouts and stuff like that, so we're very limited in like what we can do. So Solemn Simulacrum has to be in here for that reason, just to get our mana ramp on. Breaker of Creation, 6 and 2 colorless. When you cast this spell, gain 1 life for each colorless permanent you control. That's going to be every permanent in the deck because everything's colorless. It has hexproof from each color, which is great because most of the things that want to target it are probably going to be 1 or more colors. And it's got Annihilator too. More Annihilator. Yay! Yay for our opponents. By the way, if I didn't mention it before, this deck will make you the villain. You will be the archenemy. Endbringer, 5 and a colorless, 5/5. Untap Endbringer during each player's untap step. You can tap it. Endbringer deals 1 damage to any target. Colorless and tap. Target creature can't attack or block this turn. Alright, that's cool. Make things not be able to block. 2 colorless and tap. Draw a card. So just more card draw, just more ways to like help our commander do its thing, to get in unblocked, or just to draw some cards that we need if we should need cards, you know. All right, that is it for the creatures. So we are into the mana rocks, and these will all tap for some kind of mana. So this is Pristine Talisman, taps for colorless, gains us life. It's 3 mana. We have the Thought Vessel. You have no maximum hand size. I don't know if that's ever going to come up. We don't have, like I said, we don't have a lot of ways to draw a bunch of cards, so I don't know if we'll ever have like too many cards in our hand. But Thought Vessel, just a great 2 mana mana rock. Thran Dynamo, 4 mana, adds 3 mana to your mana pool. Hedron Archive adds 2 mana. We can tap it to draw. We can tap it and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. Everflowing Chalice got multi-kicker, and we can add a colorless mana for each charge counter on it. So every time we kick it, it gets another charge counter. So it's got multi-kicker 2. So for 2 mana, we can add 1. For 4 mana, we can add 2. For 6 mana, we can add 3, and so on and so on. We can, however much we have, we can just add much more, you know. Just really good mana ramp. Mind Stone, not the Mind Stone, but Mind Stone. We can tap for mana. We can also tap and sacrifice it to draw a card. Dreamstone Hedron, 6 mana, adds 3 mana, but we can pay 3, tap it, sacrifice it to draw 3 cards. So we do have card draw, but it's just not. I don't know if we want to like really go hard on the sacrificing our mana rocks, you know. That's why I say like we don't have a lot of cards. We do have card draw, but it's like we have to sacrifice something else to get it, you know. Unstable Obelisk, 3 mana rock that adds colorless. 7 mana, tap it. We can destroy a target permanent. Not a whole lot of ways to destroy things in this deck because it is colorless, and we have to just kind of get creative with our removal. So destroying a target permanent is good. We can destroy a land with that too. This is not really a heavy land destruction deck, so I think it's just destroy the most problematic thing that's going to stop you from doing the thing that you're doing. So destroy target permanent, very versatile. Ring of the Lucci, 4 mana, adds 2 mana. We can pay 2, tap it, pay 1 life. We can tap target non-land permanent, so stop a creature, maybe stop a big creature from attacking us for a turn, but also just adds 2 mana. Sisay's Ring, 4 mana, adds 2 mana, 2 colorless mana. Seer's Lantern, 3 mana thing, adds colorless, and it we can tap it to scry it, to scry 1. Is good if we're flooding out, if we need something specific. Stone Speaker Crystal, 4 mana, adds 2 mana of colorless. Pay 2, tap it. Sacrifice Stone Speaker Crystal. Exile any number of target players' graveyards, draw a card. That's also good for like those graveyard recursion decks. Also just draws a card, pretty good stuff. We have Soul Ring. I don't need to explain Soul Ring. You all know Soul Ring. Worn Power Stone. It's a 3 mana Soul Ring. it does enter tapped, but just being able to add 2 mana is pretty good. Prismatic Lens, tap to add colorless mana. Pay. I'm just gonna ignore that bottom line. It's 1 tap, add 1 mana of any color. We'll never need to use that. It's just a 2 mana rock. More mana rocks. Basalt Monolith, the Basalt Monolith. Now, there's a infinite combo. I did talk about an infinite combo with the Walking Ballista. This is also part of it. This taps. This is a 3 mana thing that taps for 3 mana. It does not untap during my untap step. We can pay 3 mana to untap it. So that's going to be important later. We'll talk about that when we get to the card that matters with it. All right, that's all the mana rocks. Now we're going into this utility artifacts. Quicksilver Amulet, 4 mana, pay 4, tap it. You can put a creature card from your hand on the battlefield. You can do that at instant speed too. So you don't get the cast triggers from your Eldrazi with it, but you can also like use it as like a maybe like a combat trick. Get a big thing on the battlefield, block something, you know, block a problematic creature. I think this is just like perfect to have in a deck like this. There are other things that do this. This is the one I had on hand, so If you're wondering, like, why is that in there and not something else, it's either I don't own it and don't want to buy it, or I just don't feel the need to, like, have to put it in the deck. And then also a lot of things, like a 100 card deck, you think, oh, 100 cards, that's a lot of cards. But then you get to a point where it's like, wow, I really have to, like, kind of narrow this down now, you know? So Quicksilver Amulet, I just think is pretty good. Semblance Anvil, we can imprint when it enters. We can exile something under it. And then spells you cast that share a card type with the exiled card cost 2 less to cast. Ideally, we want to exile under this a artifact creature. Just because it shares artifact and creature, so we can get our mana rocks down by 2. We can get our commander down by 2, all our creatures. That's pretty much mostly the stuff we have in the deck, so Semblance Anvil, pretty good in this deck. A little harder to use in a commander deck because those are like, you know, we have all these one-ofs that are important to the deck, and we don't know, you know, it's sometimes hard to make a decision of what to get rid of. But you kind of got to use, like, in the moment, like, decision making. You know, like, what am I going to need for this game, you know? So we can put something under it, and cost reduction, ahoy. We have Manifold Key. Pay 1, untap another target artifact, which is nice with the Basalt Monolith. That's not the infinite combo, but it is nice to be able to tap something twice. So if you're playing one of your mana rocks that give like 3 mana, you can tap this for 1 mana and then get, you know, net 2 mana out of it. So that's pretty cool, and then get another 3 mana. So that's pretty good. 3 mana, target creature can't be blocked this turn. Make your Eldrazi unblockable. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. Traveler's Amulet. Just to get basic land out of the grave, out of your deck to your hand, just to kind of do a little bit more rampant, a little more mana. Make sure you hit your mana. Wayfarer's Bauble, pretty much the same thing, but this one sends it to the battlefield instead of your hand, so even better. But it is 2 mana to sacrifice this. So very few things in the game colorless that allow you to do that. So gotta have the Wayfarer's Bauble in there. Key to the City. We can tap it, discard a card. Up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. Once again, making our stuff unblockable. However, this does require us to discard a card, which is important for the Emrakul that we talked about earlier. The Emrakul, we discard it into exile, and then we can play it for its madness cost, which was 6 colorless. And then we just get ourselves a big ol' Eldrazi that takes control of all the creatures. So that's pretty nice. Also, another way to draw cards, when this becomes untapped, we may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. So we get to get our card back later, you know, like not the same card, but we get to replace the card eventually, if we can. And we will be able to, because like I said, we do have a lot of stuff that creates 2 mana. Cloud Key. We're going to pretty much always choose artifact with this one. There is an argument for creature since it does reduce your commander. However, I believe that you get more value out of the artifact reduction just because there are more artifacts in the deck that will allow us to play more creatures. So that's really good. So, I mean, I guess you just use your best judgment on when to, like, what to say, what to name when you play this. But for me, it's usually artifacts. Planner Bridge. One of my favorite cards in all of Magic. It's just a 6 mana colorless thing. Pay 8 mana, search your library for a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Just any permanent. Doesn't matter. No one cares. Just, is it a creature? Is it a planeswalker? Is it an artifact? Does not matter. Just put anything. And 8 mana. 8 mana is pretty small ball in this deck, so love it. Gotta have it. Plus, with all the reduction, we can get that out pretty fast. We have Mirage Mirror. Oh, this is so good. So I was debating whether or not to put Mirror Box in this deck because we do have something that copies Eldrazi and copies colorless things. I didn't think we had enough legendary things in the deck to play the Mirror Box, to put the Mirror Box in the deck. We do have Mirage Mirror. So if we have like non-legendary like Eldrazi with Annihilator, we can just for 2 mana make this a copy of it and attack with it. And then we have 2 big 9/9s that are coming in for like Annihilator 2 and stuff. You know, so I think the Mirage Mirror is so good. We can tap it to turn it into another artifact if we need to. If we have too much mana, we can tap it for a Planner Bridge. And I don't know if we're ever going to have like 16 mana do this in one turn, but you could just make another Planner Bridge and just get another thing out of the graveyard or out of your deck. But just so versatile. Mirage Mirror. When this came out, I believe the first one was in Hour of Deficit. I believe this is from the first set it came out in. I told all my friends, I was like, oh man, like this is gonna be like a Commander staple. I'm telling you, because nobody was playing it in Standard. Nobody cared about it in Standard. Standard, it was not great. But I was like, I could see this being insane in Commander because of the fact that it's like singleton, you know? And I still don't think it really took off, but I think it's just a really good card. I really like it. One of my favorite things, and I like the foiling on it is really nice on this one. We have Moon Silver Key, and this one's 2 mana for an artifact that for 1 mana, we can tap it and sacrifice it. We can search our library for an artifact card with a mana ability, or a basic land card. Reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. All the mana rocks in the deck. We have so many. This can search out more mana and more mana and more mana. We can get any mana rock we want. I don't think we're ever going to search for a land or basic land. We have like 8 basic lands in the deck, and I don't think we're ever going to need it with this. We have so many ways to get lands out that you're just going to want the artifact for this one. For Forsaken Monument, this is a no-brainer. I mean, if you're running a colorless deck and you're not running this, it's kind of insane. Colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. Pretty cool. Whenever you tap a permanent for colorless, add an additional colorless. So double mana, just ramping. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. So this is a way we can get back in the game if we've been dealt a lot of damage. This deck is it could be a little slow sometimes. So it is possible you're going to be, you know, if your pod just sees that you're playing Ulamog, they're probably going to target you. So this is a good way to get back into the game and gain that life back. Especially if you have like any of the artifact reductions, like if you have Semblance Anvil out and it's reducing your artifacts by 0 to 0, you can just play a bunch of artifacts in 1 turn and just, you know, just get that life, just bank that life, man. This is also part of the infinite combo I was talking about with Basalt Monolith. So with Basalt Monolith, you tap it for the 3 mana. It adds an extra colorless mana with this, and then you get to use 3 mana to untap the Basalt Monolith with its own effect, but you still net 1 colorless mana. So if you could just do that infinite times. Just keep tapping, untapping, and you can just do that until you have like millions and millions of colorless mana. And then you can pay that mana for your Walking Ballista, and the Walking Ballista can then do start pinging your opponents for 1 damage apiece. So if you have those 3 cards out, you are going to win the game if there's no interaction. So infinite combo, and then you can also use that mana to play your commander or anything you want because you're going to have infinite mana with it. So Forsaken Monument, and very important with the Basalt Monolith. Pretty cool combo. So it's actually a 2-card combo, but it is an OTK with the Walking Ballista. So that is why the Walking Ballista is in here. Plus, it's just nice to have some more removal. Mystic Forge, and I was about to call it the Stoneforge Mystic. It is not that card. 4 mana, you may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast artifact spells and colorless spells from the top of your library, and you can pay 1 to exile the top card of your library. So just in case you have like a land that if you played a land and you have a land on the top, you can just get rid of it, exile it. This also allows you to put something into exile for your commander. So if you have like, oh, it's a 9, that's an 11 mana thing. We get Pathrazer of Ulamog on the top. Let's put that in exile. Now your Ulamog comes in with 11 counters, which is pretty cool. So just an important card to have. Colorless spells, anything that just deals with colorless spells. Lightning Greaves. In so many ways better than Swiftfoot Boots in this deck because you get to just immediately attack with Ulamog and just get that Annihilator going. It does give your creature Shroud, which means you can't target it, but neither can your opponents, and that's really what we care about. If this was like a different deck with like, we were equipping a bunch of stuff, I probably wouldn't have this in here, but I think this is very important for Ulamog the Defiler. On to the enchantment of the deck. 1 enchantment. Echoes of Eternity. This is why I was debating Mirror Box, just because we can copy our commander with it. It's 3 and 3 colorless. Eldrazi Kindred Enchantment. They used to be called tribal enchantments, right? They were tribal. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control, or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. So every spell in here is colorless. We get to copy everything. We get to make 2 Lightning Greaves. We technically get to make 2 commanders. So like, if the commander comes in, if we have this on the field and we summon our commander, cast our commander, we can make one opponent, exile the top half of their library. Then we can make a second opponent exile the top half of their library. So yeah, so we get to copy up our things, which is nice. This is especially nice with like the non-legendary Eldrazi in the deck, because then we get like more Annihilator more blockers, just a lot of cool things. And it's not that hard to get this out. It's only 6 mana, and every mana, basically everything in the deck provides colorless for us, except for the Ornithopter of Paradise. Everything provides colorless, so it's not that hard to get this out. This is pretty sick enchantment. I was very surprised to see how cheap this was. It was only like a couple, like a buck or something, a buck 50. I was like, that's kind of insane for. I mean, like, you're only going to use this for colorless. You're never going to use it for any other deck. But like, at the same time, that's a very, very powerful effect, especially when you think about what the best colorless cards do. You know, this will double up our mana rocks. This will double up our Eldrazi. This could double up our instants and sorceries, which we do have them in here, and we'll go over in a second. But I think this is just one of the most important cards in the deck. It's just one of the most fun cards to use, and it does snowball. On to the instants and sorceries. We have Tribal Sorcery. This one says Tribal Sorcery. Eldrazi. Each player sacrifices all permanents, all colored permanents they control. We're never going to be able to. We're never sacrificing our things. We don't have any colored permanents in here. You know, we don't see color in this deck. But all our opponents will have to sacrifice their things. Now, obviously, this deck is going to be a little weak to, like, they're colorless decks, right? But then so will their deck be to ours. So that's like kind of the drawback of having colorless. But just a nice board wipe. Sacrifices all colored permanents. That's insane. It's a good card. Just a really good card. We have Scour from Existence, instant. 7 mana instant. Exile target permanent. Just good instant removal for a lot of things. Null Elemental Blast is an instant for 1 colorless. We can counter a target multicolored spell, which a lot of commanders are. We can counter commanders with this. But also we can destroy target multicolored permanent, so, which a lot of commanders are, so pretty good stuff. Very nice little 1 mana instant. Introduction to Annihilation, which is a 5 mana sorcery. It's a lesson. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. We have Kozilek's Command. It's a kindred instant. Eldrazi. 2 colorless and X. Choose 2. Target player creates X 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token. With sacrifice this creature, add colorless, so more ramp. Target player scries X and then draws a card. Pretty good stuff. Just draws more cards. We can always copy it with the Echoes of Eternity, which is nice. Exile target creature with mana value X or less, so more removal. And exile up to X target cards from graveyards. So more exile. We can graveyard hate. Get more stuff into exile for our commander. Just a very nice, versatile command card. We have Warping Whale. 1 and a colorless. Instant. More curling. I hate that so much. Ugh. But this is all the LGS had, so I had to get the Ripple foil. Exile target creature with power or toughness 1 or less. Or we can counter target sorcery spell. Or we can create a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token with sacrifice this creature, add colorless. So more removal, more counter, more ramp. Now we get into the Planeswalkers, and we have Ugin the Ineffable, who I always say, if he just worked on his attitude and his appearance, he could be very effable. Ugin the Ineffable, 6 mana Planeswalker. Colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, so that means every spell in your deck is going to be 2 less. Comes in with 4 loyalty counters. We can plus up, add a loyalty counter, exile the top card of your library face down, look at it, and look at it. Create a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token. Then, when that token leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card into your hand. So just kind of like a pseudo draw, in a way. And then -3, we can destroy target permanent that's 1 or more colors, which is just more removal. Just a very good card, and just needs to be in the colorless deck. Ugin the Spirit Dragon, probably my favorite of all the colorless Planeswalkers, I guess. 8 mana, pretty hefty, but you know, like I said before, we don't care in this deck. We're ramping. Comes in with 7 loyalty counters. We can add 2 loyalty counters to Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Deals 3 damage to any target, so start dealing damage to small things or people's faces. We can -X, exile each permanent with converted mana cost X or less. That's 1 or more colors. So we can do that to a maximum of 7 when it comes in. So, or just later we can do it for more. But just a nice thing to have. We will never exile our own things because we don't have any colored permanents unless we steal something from our opponents, which I don't think we have any ways. I guess we do take control of creatures with the Emrakul, so it's possible we can exile our own stuff. But at that time, who cares, you know? Or we can -10. You gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, then put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. So, pretty good. Pretty good. No 7 mana Ugin in the deck. Just too expensive for my blood right now. Maybe eventually we'll get it. Maybe I'll pull it from a pack. I don't know. I just don't want to spend like $40 for one card. And before you say like, oh, well, you have a bunch of like expensive cards in here. I pulled most of them out of packs. So I don't, if a card is like over $10, I kind of hesitate to pay for it, to buy it outright. So just so you know, unless it's like really essential to something, I'm like, oh man, I need that card and I really like that card. Maybe I'll pay like a 20, but I don't usually go that high with my cards. I try to just pay like $10 or less for my cards if I'm going to buy cards. So just in case you're wondering, just have to explain that for people who just don't understand. Like, it's just a very expensive card, and yes, if I had it, if I owned it, it would be in this deck. However, I do not, so it is not here. Next, we're gonna go over the lands. A lot of different lands in here. We have 8 basic wastes in the deck, just so we can search them out through the various means you've seen already. We have Thespian Stage, which can these all tap for colorless, by the way, but this can pay 2. We can tap it and make it a copy of another target land. So we can make a copy of the next land, which is Temple of the False God, which makes 2 mana. So pretty cool stuff. We can basically we want to just use this to copy to make something into a 2 mana land, to make it into a 2 mana land. Otherwise it just taps for colorless mana, which would otherwise be another land that was in that slot. We have Blast Zone for just more removal. So we have, like I said, we don't really have that many board wipes in that. We have like 1 board wipe in the deck. And there was 1 board wipe that's like each player chooses a color and they sacrifice anything that's not that color. And I'm like, well, I mean, like, if you're playing a monocolored deck, they're just gonna say like, oh, green, and it's like, then it just does nothing. So it's like, I just don't have that one in the deck. So Blast Zone, just another kind of a board wipe, a board wipey type of thing if we need it. Scavenger Grounds. And sacrifice a desert. We do have a few deserts in here. Exile all cards from all graveyards. Just really nice to exile all the cards. We want to exile cards eventually for the Ulamog. As you know, it enters with that many counters if it has like whatever the most mana value is in exile. So exiling all graveyards could be versatile, could work for that. Also, it just stops the graveyard stuff from happening. So if someone's running that pesky Marin deck, which I do love, but if I'm playing against it, I need to do something about it. So Scavenger Grounds is just really good with that. We can sacrifice any desert. We can sacrifice another desert, different desert. So, and we do have, like I said, other deserts in the deck. Urza's Tower. Add colorless. If you control Urza's Mine and Urza's Power Plant, add 3 mana instead. So we do have those in here somewhere. Mishra's Foundry. It just turns into a 2/2 assembly worker, which is colorless, and it does get the buff from anything that buffs colorless creatures. So just a cool way to like kind of get in for some attacks if we need to. Field of Ruin to stop our opponents with those pesky lands. Just another colorless thing, just another good colorless utility. There's going to be some colorless lands in here that I don't have that you probably think I should have, and some of them, like there was another Urza's land that I was like, oh my god, this is so good, and then I was like, this is probably like $30, and it was pretty expensive, so I didn't put it in here. But Urza's Power Plant, same thing, just add 1 colorless mana. If you control Urza's Mine and Urza's Tower, you add 2 mana instead, so that's pretty cool. I don't know how often we're going to get all of them out, but, we'll try. Adventurers in Izzatown. So, there we go. We do have 1 town for the Poo-Poo UFO, but I'm just never going to use that effect because I don't care. That's not what we're here for. When it enters, we gain 2 life. Just simple life gain. Just a little bit in the beginning, if we need it. If we play that on turn 1, we get ahead of the game. Radiant Fountain, same exact thing, just not a town. As the Adventurers in, so another cool colorless thing. Darksteel Citadel adds 1 colorless. It is indestructible, so that is nice. Urza's Mine, add 1 mana, add colorless mana. If you control Urza's Power Plant and Urza's Tower, you add 2 mana instead, so part of that little combo. We have the Arid Archway, which is a desert. It enters tapped. When it enters the battlefield, we can return a land you control to its owner's hand. If another desert was returned this way, you surveil 1. Like I said, we do have deserts. Well, we have even more deserts than this, so we'll go over those in a second. Shrine of the Forsaken God. Adds colorless or adds 2 colorless and spend this mana only to cast colorless spells. Activate only if you control 7 or more lands. We're going to hope. Just strictly better than Temple of the False God, as it does tap for colorless mana forever. And the 2 mana thing is only conditional if we have the 7 lands, but Whereas the Temple of the False God does not tap for any mana if we don't have 5 or more lands. So there is that. Urza's Cave, add colorless. 3, tap, sacrifice Urza's Cave, search your library for a land card, any land. So if you're looking for that last Urza's land, then you can put that in your hand. Or you put that on the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. So nice more ramp. If we sacrifice this Crystal Vein here, we can add 2 mana of colorless. Otherwise, it just taps 4 colorless. Spawning Bed. Man, it's 6 mana, tap it, sacrifice Spawning Bed. I want to say that taps for colorless, but like I think at this point you kind of know that they all tap for colorless. But I feel like if I don't say it, people are going to be like, well, wait, you didn't say it tap for colorless. What? But they all the lands tap for colorless. We have no lands. I don't think we have any lands in here that don't tap for a colorless mana. Or at least 1 colorless mana. We can sacrifice this for 6 mana, create 3 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creature tokens. They have sacrifice, add colorless. So if we need to get like that last little bit of damage in, we make the 1/1s. If they're buffed, it's even better because we get the 3/2 from the Kozilek, we get the 2/2 from the Forsaken Monument, we get the 1/1 from the It That Heralds the End. So they can get pretty big if you have a combo of things on the field. So also we can sacrifice this to add 3 more mana to the battlefield. So if we're desperate to get our commander out, we can also do that. Also, curving, hate it. Endless Sands, another desert. I'm gonna be honest, I put this in here because I just like the look of it. I have the foil one, and I don't know if it's like, it doesn't really come across well on screen, but like, oh my god, look at that shine on the sun. I just like, when I opened this, I was like, oh my god, that is beautiful. It's just beautiful. I don't know. I just like the foiling on this one. But also it is a desert, so it does synergize a little bit with some of our lands. But also at the same time, we can pay 2, tap it, exile target creature you control. So there's a few things that we can do with that. We can save our Ulamog, our commander, if it's going to be targeted. We can wait for the target, and then they have to sacrifice 2 permanents because it's got the ward, and then we can exile it with this. And then for 4 mana, we can sacrifice Endless Sands, return each creature card exiled with Endless Sands to the battlefield under its owner's control. So then we get all that stuff back. We can do that multiple times, and then we get all that stuff back eventually. But also it is a desert to synergize with the desert stuff. So, and also you can exile something with it and just like exile one of your like 11 mana things or your 9 mana things, and then just make Ulamog that much bigger when it comes in. So you can also do that too. So there's just a few ways, you know, I like while it is in here to be a desert and just be beautiful, it does have its utilities. Rogue's Passage, 4, tap, target creature can't be blocked. Unblockable Eldrazi, just more of that. Tokasia's Dig Site, 3, Surveil 1, get something in the graveyard, more stuff to exile out of the graveyard, or just fixing the top card of your deck just so you can get what you need. So, very good. Mishra's Factory, not to be confused with Mishra's Foundry. I had to look at those ones. I was like, I have Mishra's Foundry, but I also have Mishra's Factory. I was like, what? Wait, they're different. Okay, yeah. So it's it just becomes an assembly worker, 2/2. Just another creature land. So we have a few creature lands. I don't think we don't have the Soulstone Sanctuary in here, which might. I actually don't like the creature lands that stay creatures, to be honest, because then you just lose a land if they get removed. Much harder if they go back to being a land at the end of the turn to get rid of them. Grasping Dunes, another desert. Add colorless. 1, tap, sacrifice Grasping Dunes, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. This could be some kind of removal. This could be a weakener for. You can only do this as a sorcery, so keep that in mind. But you can weaken something so that like they can't block you efficiently, or just kill a 1/1 thing. So it's pretty cool stuff. It's also a desert. Roadside Reliquary. Well, we mostly won't get the full value out of this. We can. For 2 mana, we can sacrifice this. Draw a card if you control an artifact. Draw a card if you control an enchantment. We have 1 enchantment in the deck. 1 enchantment. If we have that out, it is most likely we are going to draw 2 cards with this. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. We have Sunscorched Desert. This one is only in here just to be an extra desert. But it deals 1 damage when it enters to a target player, and then it taps for mana. So just a classic Ramanap Red, a Sunscorched Desert. We have Crawling Barrens. 4, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Crawling Barrens, and you may have it become a 0/0 elemental creature until the end of turn. It's still a land, so it keeps those counters. Those counters stay on it forever. It becomes a creature. You get to attack with it, and then it goes back to being a land at the end of the turn. So yeah, just more creature lands just to get in case there's like board wipes or something, or just need to get in a little bit extra. Dunes of the Dead, another desert. When it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So honestly, just there to be another desert. We have a lot of deserts, and we can, you know, make a 2/2 if we need to. If it somehow dies, if we have to sacrifice it to the Grasping Dunes or something, we can make a creature out of it. Tomb of the Spirit Dragon. Add colorless to tap. You gain 1 life for each colorless creature you control, which is all our creatures. So if we have just a few, just to get us back in the game, pretty good stuff. Tomb of the Spirit Dragon needs to be in here. I think it's I think it needs to be in every colorless deck, I think. And then Eldrazi Temple. Add colorless, or add 2 colorless. Spend this mana only to cast colorless Eldrazi spells, or activate the abilities of colorless Eldrazi. And that is our last card in the deck. Yeah, like I said, there's a few cards that are probably not in here that you think probably should be, that you're like, oh, you need to put that in. You need to... Let me know what other cards, like, if you're going to tell me what cards we should put in here, tell me what cards you would take out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know, like, the Skittering Surveyor is probably not one of the best cards, but I put it in just because it's another colorless creature, and it does get us lands to kind of, like, do the thing we're trying to do. So that is why that's in there. But I understand that some cards are probably better than others. So if you're going to tell me like, oh, don't say, why don't you have this in here? Because there's always a million reasons why not to have something in your deck. You know, it might be too expensive. I might not own it. It might be hard to find for me, you know, whatever the case may be. Tell me what you would put in to this deck, what your Eldrazi deck looks like, and what you would take out of this deck. If you would take anything out of this deck, what you would take out, or what does your Eldrazi deck look like? You know, what's your deck list? You can always put the deck list in the comments. I've had people do that numerous times in the past, or just send me a link to your deck list, because I'm always interested to see what you guys are rocking. But like I said, this is just cards that I had available, cards that I had available to buy, cards that I didn't think were too expensive to acquire. I do not have Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger in here. I do plan on eventually getting that. So with all my decks, with all my deck techs, these are ever-changing deck lists. So these will get upgraded. It's possible it could be upgraded by the time you're watching this. Depends on when you're watching this. There's plenty of cards in the world of Magic the Gathering that obviously deserve to be in a colorless deck. This is my personal build, and it will get better. It could get worse. You know, I've done that before, where I take things out and I'm like, this isn't as good. But you know, this deck started as an Ulalek deck, and I was just always having trouble with the colorless and colored mana, because you do need a lot of like pain lands in that deck. Like I had all the pain lands, I had all the pain deserts, and now they have the new ones coming out in Marvel, which are going to be good for that deck. But then I was like, it's just too much for my brain to like kind of mess with. I was like, why don't I just do a colorless deck? I've always wanted to do a colorless deck. I know it's kind of absurd to have like a 10 mana commander, but I feel like it kind of works in this deck. We have things to do until we get to our commander. A lot of things we can do. A lot of other creatures we can summon. So there is that. And I just decided like the mana base would be much easier to deal with if it was just colorless. If it was just, because then I was running into things where something needed a certain color and I didn't have that color. And then I was also running into times where like I had all the colors, but I didn't have colorless. And I was like, this is just too much for me. And it also wasn't the deck I was trying to create. I was trying to create like a big Eldrazi deck. And I think Ulalek and Azlask want you to have a bunch of little Eldrazi drones. So it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I've always been a big heavy Eldrazi like beatdown fan. And I think this was the way to go for me. And I am much happier with this deck than I was with the Ulalek deck. And you know what? I can still build the Ulalek deck, because like I said, I think it wants more Eldrazi drones, or the Azlask deck, which wants you to have more drones, and they all get Annihilator. So it's possible that those decks don't even need like Ulamog and these big things. So it's even cheaper if I don't put those in, and I don't think that those decks need it. So it is nice to have like an option for different Eldrazi decks. But this one, in the long run, I think this one was much more inexpensive than the Ulalek deck, since like the land base had to be like really crazy with the Ulalek. But yeah, there's a ton more colorless lands to put in this deck, ton more colorless creatures. Let me know in the comments. Just type the name of a colorless thing that you think should go in here, and just give me some ideas. There might be even some cards where I didn't even look at yet, you know, like, so because I look on EDH Rec sometimes for cards, and sometimes they don't say everything. You know, they just say like the most popular ones, but there could be like some like sleepers that people don't use that maybe you use. And maybe you're like, man, I don't understand why people aren't using this card. Let me know, because I'm into that kind of stuff. You know, I love that kind of stuff. I love seeing the cards that, you know, that are mostly unplayed or just not super meta. You know, it's like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, that needs some love. I love showing those cards love, you know? So, that is the deck. That is the deck tech. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And we will see you next time. Peace out and have an absolutely wonderful day.